Attacker from Jersey City, New Jersey, was originally formed as Warlock, no K, in 1983 by drummer Mike Sabatini and guitarists Pat Marinelli and Dominic Spina, along with John Joseph on bass and Bob Mitchell on vocals. Dominic would leave pretty quickly though and be replaced by Jim Mooney. This lineup would release a 3-track demo in early 1984. Warlock would send the demo out to record labels, including Metal Blade, who offered them a spot on the Metal Massacre 5 compilation. However, after becoming aware of the German band Warlock, they decided to change their name. So by the time Metal Massacre 5 came out, the band was known as Attacker. Metal Blade would also offer Attacker a deal for a full-length album, but before recording, John Joseph would leave and be replaced by a bassist named Jimmy Schulman. However, the band was apparently not satisfied with his performance and brought in bassist Lou Charlo to re-record the bass parts on the first Attacker release, 1985's Battle at Helm's Deep. Battle at Helm's Deep is a fantastic US power metal album, packed with speedy, energetic riffs, aggressive yet elaborate song structures, and some clear European influences. While the title is a Lord of the Rings reference, there's actually more of a battle-ready, axe-wielding aesthetic in the presentation, similar to West Coast bands Omen and Armored Saint. And Bob Mitchell's eccentric, high-pitched vocals may not be for everyone, but for me, the somewhat rough delivery is actually a pretty great fit with the enthusiastically powerful atmosphere. Written primarily by guitarist Jim Mooney, Battle at Helm's Deep is mostly straightforward but fist-pumping 80s metal that easily sustains the 39-minute runtime. But there are also some light progressive elements and even some 70s hard rock touches mixed in. Plus, it's full of excellent lengthy solos and intricately composed guitar passages that add to the epic, powerful feel. Nearly every song on here is worth mentioning, including Disciple, that stood out to me with its insanely catchy chorus. Metal Blade would actually ask Attacker to record a second album about 6 months after the release of Battle at Helm's Deep, but the band decided to decline the offer since they didn't have any new material yet and also felt that the label hadn't done enough for their first album, even though it had been largely well received. Somewhere around this time, Bob Mitchell would seem to lose interest in the band, eventually being let go and replaced by vocalist John Leone. Attacker would manage to get a new demo recorded, but Jim Mooney would end up butting heads with the new singer for some reason, and he'd decide to leave too. He'd be replaced by guitarist Tom D'Amico, and this revamped lineup would record The Second Coming, released on Mercenary Records. As you can probably tell by the cover, The Second Coming is a speedier, somewhat more aggressive take on the Attacker sound. I prefer the first album overall, but this one is still very good, with more blistering riffs this time around, and some strong vocals from John Leone, who sounds a bit more clean and controlled to me than Bob Mitchell.
Your destiny's here.
Bassist Lou Charlo would be the main songwriter on The Second Coming, and it's mostly all pretty straightforward speed metal. You could probably even argue that most of the tracks have a similar feel, but even so, this is a very easy album to listen to. Also, Tom D'Amico and Pat Marinelli continue to lay down some excellent solos throughout the album. It's insanely short, coming in at only 28 minutes long, but it packs a ton of energy and attitude into 8 solid tracks. Attacker would break up in 1989, with the guys moving on to other projects. But in 2000, at the funeral of guitarist Jim Mooney, the guys would decide to record a third album and dedicate it to Jim, as well as John Leone, who had passed away in 1994, and Tom D'Amico, who would pass away in 2001. Bassist Lou Charlo would end up being too busy with family and day job stuff, so he'd be replaced on this album by Felix Torres, and they'd also bring on second guitarist Mike Benitatos. Plus, after reconnecting with drummer Mike Sabatini, Bob Mitchell would also return, rounding out the new lineup for 2004's Soul Taker, released on Iron Glory Records. Overall, Soul Taker is very good, even better than The Second Coming in my opinion, due partially to the fact that it's the first Attacker album to contain contributions from all members, rather than just one primary songwriter, giving it a nice variety of sounds. You get plenty of the faster headbanging stuff you'd expect, along with some modern metal touches and a couple catchy choruses as well. Plus, Attacker also work in some nice, slower moments as well here, expanding their sound a bit beyond the traditional 80s power and speed metal, including a proper ballad in the album closer, Until We Meet Again. I will say that I think Bob's vocals are still something of an acquired taste, but overall he does a competent job here as well, especially on the faster tracks. With Lou Charlo returning on bass, Attacker would also record The Unknown, released in 2006 on Sentinel Steel Records. And The Unknown is another really solid album that's musically along the same lines as Soul Taker. Maybe a little more modern, maybe a little darker, but if you like Soul Taker, you'll like The Unknown too. Nothing groundbreaking, of course, but there's some great stuff on here, and more than enough old school energy to satisfy longtime fans.
Trapped within my rage. Lights out my mental cage. I'm getting run cerebral drive. Cannot, will not describe. Accused, abuse, brain shake. Who lose, redo, brain shake. Combust, no trust, brain shake.
It is a shame they couldn't bring back John Leone, who was the better singer of the two, but Bob gets the job done, even with his sometimes screechy Udo-light delivery. However, this would be the last Attacker album with Bob, who parted ways with the band in 2008. He'd be replaced for one show by Walter Figueroa, but Attacker would essentially go on hiatus until 2012, when they'd bring on vocalist Bobby Lucas and new bassist John Hanneman. Along with Mike Sabatini, Mike Benedettos, and Pat Marinelli, this new lineup of Attacker would release Giants of Canaan in 2013, now on Metal Records.
Seduced by the beauty of your mortal flesh, wicked creations from them our names. Now we face the furious. He sends the earth a cleansing. The greatest blood, a tool to wash away betrayal.
Mike Benedettos would become the main songwriter for Attacker with this album, and while I'd say the approach isn't a major departure from the Soul Taker and Unknown stuff, it's their most modern sounding release yet. Although it never abandons the band's old school roots, making for an excellent collection of powerfully energetic tracks with some dark overtones.
Fight for his life, for him I would die. To glory we ride, steely samurai, protecting the throne. This life is my own, for him I will kill, so that he may live. I look to the ones who came before me now. I saw your wisdom and your strength to obey.
And Bobby is a great addition to the band, delivering the soaring vocals that Attacker's music requires, but with a little more power and fullness than their previous singer. However, where this album really shines for me is the guitar playing, with elaborate passages in a nice variety of moods and tempos, plus more fantastic emotional solos. In 2014, Attacker would bring on their current bassist, Brian Smith, with his first appearance being on their 2016 release, Sins of the World. And for me, this is Attacker's best 21st century album. I like Giants of Canaan well enough, of course, but it seemed to focus more on power than melody. Whereas this one takes the songwriting up a notch, digging back into Attacker's Iron Maiden characteristics while still maintaining a modern sound overall.
To claim this world as a newborn kingdom, Mother Tree not destroy. Archangel, descending from the sky. Archangel, on wings of steel and flame. Archangel.
I feel like this is where the Bobby Lucas-led version of Attacker really gels, with some headbanging riffs, powerful vocals, and memorable tracks. That said, the solos are still freaking awesome, and continue to be a highlight. Although this would be the last album to feature Pat Marinelli, who left immediately after recording and was replaced in the band and on the album art itself by current guitarist John Hasselbrink. Pat left the band due to several circumstances. He may have had personal issues, and he seemed to lose interest in getting together with me to work on material. We used to get together many times to ensure we were tight and work on songs, but in the last 2 years before he left, we got together only a few times. We will always remain great friends because he's like a brother to me. He was even in my wedding party, so I love that son of a bitch and wish him the very best. But regardless of any internal issues that may have been going on, Sins of the World is a fantastic album, delivering exactly what you'd want from Attacker. The first Attacker recording to include John would be the Armor of the Gods EP from 2018. While it's technically too long to be considered an EP, this 6-track release still feels like one, containing just 4 new songs and 2 live ones. It's all pretty much in the same direction as the previous 2, but also a bit underwhelming overall, especially after the stellar Sins of the World. Still, this one isn't bad and should be of interest to Attacker fans. With Bobby taking a break to undergo triple bypass heart surgery, Attacker would briefly bring on vocalist Norman Ski Kiersnowski and start work on some new material, but they'd end up only releasing a single in 2021.
So draw your swords and raise your shields high. Prepare for war. Get ready to fight.
However, they'd get back with Bobby Lucas for Attacker's most recent album, The God Particle, from 2024. First of all, I have to commend Attacker for putting out a full-length album in 2024 that's only 33.5 minutes long, which makes it over a minute shorter than that Armor of the Gods EP. But regardless, The God Particle is a heavy and aggressive yet easy album to listen to, with driving riffs, solid drums and bass, and Bobby's high-pitched vocals. This time also evoking some David Wayne of Metal Church vibes.
Embracing the inferno into the fires of hell, returning to the earth realm where the morning sun was filled. Now hell screams of the dying. These are the night has put the
I still have to go with Sins of the World for the best of 21st Century Attacker, with catchier choruses and some phenomenal solos. Not to say that this one doesn't have its own share of great guitar playing and awesome tracks, but I did find myself enjoying the second half a bit more than the first.
the cold and painful fall. This just might be our final joyride. Our world in flames, nothing remains. Our world in flames. Our world in flames, nothing but pain. Our world in flames.
But all that said, this is still a very solid metal album, culminating in 8 bone-crunching tracks that deliver a mix of power, speed, and thrash.
May have created a new world of death. The end is yes of the alarm. The praise of kingdom blesses hey. The watchers on earth have said and prayed. Demons below them take to astray. The earth is now burning. Rouse to silver now. Watchers and who is as well.
And that, metal scholars, is Attacker, an incredibly consistent US power metal band from New Jersey that remains one of the lesser-known hidden gems among old-school groups that deserve a little more attention. Which brings us to your homework. I'd say every Attacker album is worth checking out, but it also depends on what you're looking for. Battle at Helm's Deep from 1985 is pure 80s US power metal with enough exuberance and passion to excuse any flaws. But then, The Second Coming from 1988 is very much a speed metal album, with more of a focus on face-melting riffs. Soul Taker from 2004 is probably in my top 3, so I'd recommend it if you're only going to listen to one album from round 2 of the Bob Mitchell years. But The Unknown from 2006 is also really solid. Giants of Canaan from 2013 is another very good release, but like I said, Sins of the World from 2016 would be my pick so far from the Bobby Lucas lineup. Although, The God Particle from 2024 is also pretty great, especially if you lean more toward The Second Coming and Giants of Canaan. I hope you guys enjoyed this look back at Attacker, a band that I honestly wasn't super familiar with past their Metal Massacre appearance. But even with some different sounds throughout their career, they've managed to stay remarkably consistent over 4 decades, hopefully with more to come. As always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.